Hi there, day 4, and this is lesson 3, and we're talking about in this video value-based pricing. We want to help our customers determine the worth of our solution. So whatever we're offering, we want them to feel like the investment to pay for that solution is so worth it to them that it's 5 to 10 times greater than what the investment is to actually buy the thing, right? Now, when you are putting together your products and services, sometimes people will get stuck figuring out, well, how would I price this thing, right? And I don't want you to get stuck. I don't want you to be wondering how you should price your product or service. So let's talk about that. I do have a worksheet that goes with this video as well. So you're going to want to get that worksheet, print that off, and kind of work through that as well. So there's many options, many ways that you can price your products or services. Some you're going to be totally familiar with, right? So one way is cost plus method of pricing your product, right? You just figure out the total cost of goods to create that product or service, and then you add a certain percentage to it to come up with the price. That's called cost plus. That might work fine if you're selling widgets, but if you're selling a service, it might not work so well. So the next type of pricing strategy you could use is a project-based method. This works pretty well if you are service-based, right? So what you do here is you determine your internal hourly rate, like how much do you want to get paid per hour. This is not something that you share with your clients. It's only used for the purpose of the calculation. You figure out what that is. Say it's $100 an hour. Then you multiply that by the expected number of hours you think the project will take, and then that will give you your project price. Okay, so that works fairly well. The caveat is whether or not you can estimate an accurate amount of hours. And when you're first starting out, normally you can't. So I would recommend that if you use this method, then you should probably double it after you've created the first calculation. Then just go ahead and double it, because it may take you longer to produce than you originally thought. Okay, the third way that you could figure out pricing would be to use something called a retainer-based method. So this is where you and the client would negotiate a certain amount per month that they just put you on a retainer. So every month they're paying you that amount for a certain number of services that you're offering, and you guys kind of negotiate what works for both of you. So that's one way, or that's the third way, right? But actually, and this retainer-based method actually works pretty well for those ongoing type of services. If you're offering SEO optimization services or social media management services or any kind of services that you have to do repeatedly month after month after month, right? So that kind of works. All right, but up until this point, all of those methods are really focused on your actual cost and your labor. But there's actually another way that you can determine your pricing that is not based on the cost or the labor. Instead, it's based on the value that your customer receives from your product or service. Doesn't that sound great? So it's called the value-based method. And with this method, you want to think about your customer's problem. So the problem specifically that you can help solve, right? How does that problem impact their life, and what does it mean to them when they solve that problem? Once you can figure out, what it's worth to them, then that can help you kind of decide what your pricing would be, right? Let me give you an example. you could have a conversation with your client to help them understand the true value, right? You want them to really define what that is. So I'm going to walk you through a little conversation, and it goes like this. So I'm talking to the client. I say, "What is your average monthly revenue right now?" Then the client would respond, "Oh, it's about 5,000 a month." And then I would ask, "Well, what would your ideal average monthly revenue be?" And the client would respond, "Well, I would love to be making $10,000 a month." And then I would respond with, "The difference between that average revenue and the ideal revenue is 5,000 a month. And that's how much it's costing you to do nothing. And over 12 months, that 5,000 a month adds up to $60,000 a year in lost revenue by not moving forward and not working with me." So from here, I would then ask another question. Are you prepared, or how long can you continue to lose that amount of money? So that kind of conversation helps the customer to understand that doing nothing is not an option because they're losing money. You're highlighting it for them. You're helping them figure out the real value of working with you. Okay, so then when you have conversations like this, when it comes to the time where you present your fees to them, they'll already have in their mind how much they're going to be saving if they do work with you. So your fees are going to be no big deal. That's the idea of value-based method. Now, this same thing can work if you're not dealing directly with the money. Like the example I gave you was purely money, so that I could show you how to multiply that out and see the total amount of money they're losing. But you could have another conversation. Say you're a life coach. You could have a conversation with your potential client and ask them leading questions, and you let them respond to those questions. And then at the end of the conversation, you would ask something like, well, let me give you some of the questions. So you might ask your client, "What would your ideal life look like?" And you let them respond. What is your ideal life worth to you? And you let them respond. And that may not be dollarized. That just, you're helping them explain why this is important to them. The next question might be, well, what is holding you back right now from getting your ideal life now? And again, you're helping them to identify the things that are blocks for them. And then you could close the conversation with, well, what if you were able to define specific actions you could take that would move you closer to your ideal life? Would you be interested in coaching with me? And you let them respond. So again, this value method is conversational, and it helps the client determine themselves the real value of working with you. So I have a worksheet that goes over value-based pricing and gives you an example to craft your own kind of value-based conversations. So take a look at that and do that homework, and I will see you on day 5. All right.